Hello friends, here with a Lonesome Gamer, and today I want to talk about card-driven games or CDGs. And you can see a few here. Basically the first one I think was We the People by Mark Herman. Another real important classic was Hannibal, Rome vs. Carthage. And here we see two more recent ones and very successful ones. It's Paths of Glory and Twilight Struggle, which was actually for a long time #1 on BGG. Now, what's the purpose of this video? Well, if you're following my channel, you know I'm doing this historical journey, and well, apart from some other games that I do, some American trash stuff and so on. And on this journey we're gonna see a lot of these CDGs. Actually the next one will be successors, so I thought it's a good idea to do this video now, because CDGs are always a real challenge for solo players. And there are a lot of concepts to come up with some solitaire rules for all types of games, and some try to create some kind of AI. For example, for Twilight Struggle I found some. But these are all very specific. Each game has its own solo rules and some are terribly complex. Now lately I've seen a very interesting system developed by Stuka Joe. That's at least his name on BGG. I don't know his real name at the moment. And he developed the system basically for Paths of Glory, but he emphasized that he want a system which could be used with all CDGs with only very little modifications. Now the system is not an AI, but it's a system that kind of handles some of the problems that a solitaire player has when he plays CDGs, and it simply should make the experience more enjoyable. And I read that and I was really fascinated. And by the way, there was really a big buzz about that. I mean, it was in the, I think it was in the C3I magazine of GMT Games, and I've read some articles on BGG. I've read some articles on other board game forums. So he really came up with something here. It was just a great idea. But when I took a closer look on that system, I wasn't too satisfied with it. There were always some little flaws that just didn't leave me really happy. So I thought maybe there is a way I can use these basic ideas that I absolutely loved and come up with something on my own. So the purpose of this video now is I want to show you what I would suggest and how I will play these CDGs during my playthroughs. So if I start to do a series, I don't have to explain the whole system, but I simply will say, okay, just look at that video, and there I'm going to explain how this basic idea, which is, by the way, terribly simple, works. first I want to show you what type of games we're exactly talking about here. Then I want to introduce you to the system of Stuka Joe, because I want to make, first of all, I want to make really clear what he did, and that it's a very, very clever system. And I don't want to make the impression that I steal something of him and take my own credit or something like that. That's absolutely not the case here. And I want to explain why I think some problems can come up there. And then I want to introduce you into my system. Okay. So first of all, I want to show you what the basic criteria of these CDGs that we're talking about here is. So I took two cards, one of Hannibal and another one of Twilight Struggle. And as you can see on both cards, you have here on the top left a number, same here, and it's these are called basically action points or activation points or whatever, something like that. And then you see some kind of event, Corsica and Sardinia Revolt, for example, or the junta here. There are other types of CDGs. For example, in the Coin series, and in Abyss or Falling Sky or something, they were pretty different. And I think you might also call a game like Mage Knight a CDG, or maybe a game like Neanderthal or Memoir 44. But I'm talking especially about these type of CDGs that come with these command points and an event. And each player has a hand of cards, and he has to play a card each turn if he wants to do something, and that card clearly determines what and to what extent, or especially to what extent, he can do actions on the board. That is what we're talking today. Now, these kind of games often are a real challenge for solitaire gamers. Because, first of all, there's a lot of hidden information there. I mean, every player has its own hand of cards, and so this surprise factor is gone. That's one of the issues here. Another one is that in CDGs you often have a real flow during a game. Each player makes really fast decisions. He has his hands of cards, he plays a card, do something, and then the other guy plays another card, does his action, and so on. And that is this special feature which makes CDGs so successful, that they are pretty fast. There is not much downtime. If you play solo, this becomes a real challenge, though, because you always have to check the cards, and sometimes these can be 7, 8, 9 cards on the hand of a player. You have to check them, you have to read them, you have to make a decision what you want to do. You play a card, you put the cards aside, you kind of try to forget them. You have to take the cards of the other player, have to check them, have to read them, have to make a decision, play them, and so on. And this becomes really fatiguing in a way. And these might be probably the main problems if you play solo. And to solve these problems, Stuka Joe came up with a real interesting idea. First of all, you don't have, I don't know, let's say 9 cards or 7 or 8. You only have 5 cards to choose from. No matter what game you play, no matter what CDG you play, you only have 5 cards to choose from. And every player, you don't play completely solo, you play still both players, but each player has kind of this in front of him. What you do now, you choose a card. And I don't know, let's say we choose the Allied Auxiliaries here. I want to play that card. Then I roll 2 dice. I need they have to be different colors. And now you can see the numbers above the cards. These numbers indicate what I have to roll to be allowed to actually play the chosen card. So if I want to play that card, I have to roll a 4 or less on the black die. If I want to play that card, I have to play a 3 or less. The middle card I can play with a 5 or less, that card again with a 4 or less, and this one again with a 3 or less. Okay, so let's just do it. Okay, I got a 3, so I'm allowed to play the card. The black die shows a 3. So I'm allowed to play the card, zip, do my action, or I can choose if I want to do the action or if I want to do the event here. Okay, then I discard the card. Now this card here on the right is also discarded, so that there are always 2 free spaces here in the deck. Now I move these cards here to the very right, and I draw 2 new cards, but I leave them face down. What I do now is, I do now the action of the other player. And this way I only know 3 of the cards of this player. I don't know these 2. So there is not all the knowledge now open. So after I've done the action of this player, of the other guy, I will flip these cards. And now I can choose another one. Let's say I take the middle one. 3 is pretty good. So again, I roll these 2 dice. And yeah, I got a 4. I'm below 5. So I'm allowed to play this card. Play it. Then I remove this card here. And these cards slide to the right. I draw 2 new ones. I do the other player, flip these cards, and now we have here, for example, a good high card, which would give us 3 command points, so I'm going to roll again. Now I need a 3 or less to be successful, and I don't have that. So now I'm not allowed to play my chosen card. Instead, I have to play the 4th card of the row. So we have down here these, and by the way, there are player mats for that, which have these numbers, and it's all cool, a very good design and so on. But if you've played it a few times, it's very simple to do it without the numbers at all. You can simply do this in your head. So now I have to play the card which is shown by the other die, and that is card number 4. So that means I would have to play the hostile tribes. And I can choose if I want to play command or an event. Okay? Fine. Now, this card also goes away, because it's the rightmost card. These cards are again moved here, placed to here. I will place them face up right away, and so on. Now, you could ask, okay, what would have happened if I rolled doubles, for example? Then it's a special case. If I roll doubles, I have to take the number of the card, the card, in this case card number 5, which would be that one, and I have to play the event of that card. I cannot choose to play the command points. I have to play the event. So if I roll a double 2, I have to play the event of that card, a double 3 of this card, double 5 of that card. If I roll a double 6, there's a special case. It's kind of a surprise event. I simply draw the top card of the draw pile and play this event. Okay? If the event has no effect, then I'm allowed to use the operation points instead. Now, if I would roll above the number, like for example here, I want to play this card and I would roll a 5, and then the alternative card would be a 6. And you can see there are only 5 cards. Then I also have to draw a card here, and I can choose if I want to play an operation or if I want to play the event. So, just a short recap. You choose a card. You have to remain with 1 die below the number indicated here. If that doesn't happen, you have to play the card that is indicated by the other die. If you roll doubles, you have to play the event of the card that is indicated by the die. If it's a 6, you draw from the draw pile. And after each turn are removed, slice here, so there have to be 2 empty spaces, and you can simply draw 2 new cards. They remain face down while you are acting for the other player. And that's basically it. So I think that's a very good idea. First of all, you don't have the full information while you are playing for the other player. Second of all, you still have a choice. It's not a completely random system. You still have to make a decision what card you want to play. But you don't have a ton of cards anymore, so it becomes a little easier, I think, to make these decisions, because there are only 5 cards now to choose from. And on the other hand, you still got some randomness going on, so that it becomes not too predictable. So yeah, I think that is indeed a very good idea. But there are some problems here. And the first one is pretty, one thing is, what happens if you only have, and he came up with a solution for that pretty soon. I think it was maybe already in the system integrated at the beginning. You only have a limited number of cards to play, usually before a new round starts. I don't know, for example, in Twilight Struggle you have, I don't know, I think at the beginning 7 cards to play, and then the next turn starts. So, and you would get a complete new hand. So somehow you have to simulate that, to simulate the different turns, but because between the turns usually some administrative things are going on, or some new cards come into play, and so on. So I think he uses cubes. So if you have, for example, 7 cards in your hand, you can simply place 7 cubes here on the left, and every time you play a card, you move a cube to the right, and then you can keep track of how many cards you have played. Problem solved. Another problem is that you will go much faster through the deck than you would do normally. Because you simply, you always, instead of just playing a card, you discard a card, you discard another card, this thing slides over, you draw 2 new cards, and you get much faster through the deck than if you follow the normal rules. And in some games that's a real issue. For example, in Twilight Struggle, you have in the deck some cards that trigger scoring rounds. And if you see these cards more often, that will change the dynamic of the game a lot. Because, for example, I guess players who are in the lead, who have a better position on the board, are favored by that. They might become a runaway leader. And especially in Twilight Struggle, usually the Russians have a better start. And during the game, new cards are added to the deck, which bring the US in a better and better position. But if you go through the deck in the first turns more often than you normally would, then the Russians can achieve a victory right at the beginning much easier, or pretty much at the beginning, much easier if they have all these scoring cards than they would otherwise. So there was a change suggested that the cards that are not played go on another discard pile, which is basically a pile of cards that will be recycled. So you play a card, and the other card goes on another discard pile, and once you're through the draw pile, you don't shuffle the played cards, but you only shuffle the recycled cards. You make a new pile of only recycled cards, and start a new draw pile only with these cards. But there things are getting kind of complicated, right? Because what you will do if you follow this idea, you start to play, well, you might actually call it a kind of a mini game or something. You start to play with these numbers. So you realize, okay, it's very likely that I can play that number, that I can play the middle card. And first you will probably choose mainly the good cards. So that will lead you to the point where you will play the strong cards at the beginning, and then you have a pile of mainly strong cards as a discard pile, and all the crappy cards, or mainly crappy cards in this recycle pile, and you shuffle that again, and then you get a pile of 1-pointers, maybe a few 2-pointers, and the most of the 3-pointers are already gone. And that will change the dynamic of the game a lot. You know, the pace of the game, the number of actions you can do will be very limited in the second half of the game, while in the first half you can do a ton of things. And it's very hard to find a way around that. And you will, as I said, you will also start to play with these numbers. So, for example, if I have a card here, a 3 card there, I will probably try to get this card first, because I know this card will then end up here, so I can play that card in the next turn. And so it becomes this kind of mini game. How can I optimize these 5 cards, and how can I how can I get the best cards out of this moving line here and leave the bad ones go away into the recycle pile? And that is definitely not what a CDG is about. So I somehow tried to find a way around this. My first idea was, well, we might say, okay, it's harder to play a 3 card. You can only play a 3 card if you subtract 1 from this. So to play that card, you need a 3 or less, right? And if you are not able, if you're not allowed to play that card, you have to play the worst card possible. So in this case, there is a risk of choosing only the best cards, because if I don't make it to roll to take that 3, I have to play a 1 card. That would also bring some of these 1 cards into play that otherwise simply move through the line. But it didn't work either, because I ended up choosing only the 2 cards. And that was really weird. So all the 2 cards, because there was no risk there, all the 2 cards were then basically gone, some of the 3 cards, and still most of the 1 cards were not played, only a few of them. So I realized this is all not working very well for me. And I came up with another system, which is definitely simpler. I think it is, you can easily play it with each CDG, but it takes a lot from that system. And yeah, I just want to show you how it works. Okay, so first of all, you just deal the hands to the player as the rules say. In Hannibal, for example, you start with 7 cards per player, so each player gets 7 cards. Then, starting with the first player, you flip the 3 rightmost cards. And now, again, you simply make a choice. So you can choose between these 3 cards, and let's say I want to play the Major Campaign. It's the best card here, no doubt. Again, you roll 2 dice. Now, this time it's a little different. If I roll a 1 to 4, I'm allowed to play that card. If I roll a 5 or 6, I'm not allowed. So this is the black die. Okay, so I can play that card. Fine. Okay, that card goes to the discard pile. That's it. Then we play for the next player. Now it's me again, and I simply flip the next card. Okay, now I got to choose between these cards. They're not very good, sadly, but okay, sometimes you have to accept that. And I don't know, let's say we take that one. Again, a 1 to 4. And it didn't work. We got a 6. Now, there are 2 other cards left. And on a 1 to 3, I play the card on the left. On a 4 to 6, I have to play the card on the right. That's it. I got a 1 to 3, so I have to play now this card. And there we go. Card is played. Next turn, we can choose another card. Okay, we got now these cards here. Now let's say I want to play that card, and I roll again, something like a 6 and a 4, for example. Then I would have to choose this card instead, because my first choice was that one, and then on a 1 to 3 I had to choose that one, on a 4 to 6 this one. Always the 2 other cards have to be played if I roll above 4, and it's always the left 1 to 3, the right 4 to 6. It's that simple. Now, to bring a little bit more surprises into the game, if you roll doubles, you simply take the card on the left and you have to play it as an event. If it doesn't have an effect, or if it's not legal, you play it for the command points. That's it. That's all. I think that works pretty well because, well, first of all, it's simple. Second of all, you have exactly the number of cards that the game tells you, so the pace of the game stays exactly the same. In addition, you can do a little more planning. You can hold on to a card. If you want to play a card later during the game, you can keep it. I mean, it's not guaranteed. It is always possible that you roll bad and that you have to play the card you basically wanted to keep, but at least you can try it. While in the other system, all cards will simply go away, right? Here, you can hold on to a card. And for example, there are in Twilight Struggle, there are these scoring cards, I mentioned them earlier, and these cards have to be played. They are not allowed to be discarded. So in the other system, I had to come up with something to do this. I mean, this is not a big deal, but here you don't have to change the rules. You simply can choose to play them, or you don't play them, but they won't go away. And at the very end, you will have to. They will simply remain here on the board, and you have to play them anyway. And if there are only 3 cards left, you make a choice. Bam. If there are only 2 cards left, you choose that one. If you are above 4, you have to play the other one. If not, you can play that one. And this is it. In addition, 3 cards are easy to pick from. If you want more cards, I don't see a problem why you should take 4 or 5. But I think, well, for me, 3 work perfectly fine. It's easy to make a decision between 3 cards. And it really keeps this fast pace of the game better than, I don't know, a higher number, at least for me. Now, this system also works well for example, specific type of combat systems like you have it in Forbidden Stars. Each player here starts with 5 cards, and you have 3 rounds of combat, right? So what you can do now is, and the specific part here is that both players have to reveal their cards simultaneously. And you have that in quite a few games. So how can you kind of simulate that as a solo gamer? Well, the way I do it is, first, each player starts with... Each player has a hand of 5 cards. So each player starts here with, oops, let's see, 5 cards. And then we reveal the 3 cards here. Let's say this is the attacker. We reveal these cards. And we make a choice. Okay, let's say we do this one. Now, we don't roll if we are allowed to play that or not. But first, we reveal these 3 cards, and we make our choice here. Let's do that one. And then we roll for this guy, then we roll for the other guy. So it's not exactly simultaneously, but a little bit, right? You don't exactly know, will he really play that card? Or maybe it's going to be another card. And then we simply reveal the next card for the attacker, make again a choice, we roll the dice, see if we can play that one, or maybe it has to be another one, who knows. Then we flip this card here. No, that's exactly what we're not doing, sorry. We don't roll the dice, we just make our choice. Then we flip this card, we make our choice here, and then we roll the dice and we see what happens. That's it. That is my solo system for CDGs so far. I might change that, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to do another video sometime. If you have great ideas, just come up with them. It's just great. And I want to really thank Stuka Joe for the inspiration he gave me. I think he came up with a fantastic idea. And without him, without his system, I think I wouldn't have done mine, although it's more, I don't know, more simpler, I guess. But it's definitely not that sophisticated as his is, but it has his key elements, and I think I would not have come up with them on my own. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video or on lonesomegamer.com. Bye.